feel the need for speed. Ding, doo-doo, ding, doo-doo, 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 doo-doo. That's right, I'm back, and it's 31 days of F-Zero. Playing F-Zero for 31 days straight. It's a lot of fun, very difficult. But if you want high-speed futuristic race action, this is your game. So we're going to start off talking about F-Zero first, the original game in the series for the Super Nintendo that launched with the Super Nintendo. You had the choice of Super Mario World, Pilot Wings, demonstrating the Mode 7 graphics in a realistic flight simulator, and you had the fast-paced futuristic game everyone was talking about with its Mode 7 graphics, which apparently rotated the course around your car, giving the illusion of 3D and advancing in the game. Really cool. I used to play it with my friend, and we were always kind of irritated that you couldn't play two-player, so we had to alternate single-player. But yeah, it introduced us to Captain Falcon, Samurai Goro, and the Fire Stingray, my favorite, because of the high top speed. Of course, Pico and his Wild Goose, and then Dr. Stewart and the Golden Fox. Then, in 1998, Nintendo released F-Zero X for the Nintendo 64. Yeah, forget two players, why not have four-player action? And it did, four-player split screen, 3D graphics for the first time. They didn't look that great, but what it lacked in graphics, it made up for in the 3D courses, the cylinders, the half pipes, the corkscrews, and 30-player racing action. So there you go. This, I think, set the standard for what F-Zero was to become. Then, in Japan only, they released the expansion kit, which added two new cups, DD Cup 1, DD Cup 2 for disk drive, and then the track editor, which you may have seen in my very first videos, which may or may not be public, but the track editor should be up there, as well as the DD Cup courses. Then they moved on to the Game Boy Advance, went back a little to the original graphical style, and this takes place after everyone's retired from the original series. So you've got new racers, new planets to race on, and it's pretty good. You can also play multiplayer on one cart with the same car and the same course, or if you link four carts together, then you can play every course you've unlocked in the game or drive every car. And that's not an easy feat, let me tell you. But then in 2003, Nintendo and Sega and Amusement Vision teamed up to release F-Zero GX and its arcade counterpart AX, and this took what they did on the 64 to the next level. You have beautiful 3D graphics, you've got 30 racers, high speed, intense action, and they introduced a story mode for Captain Falcon, which is really difficult even on normal. But yeah, this set the bar for what an F-Zero game is and should be. Then they went back a little bit to the Super Nintendo style graphics with F-Zero GP Legend, and it sort of follows alongside the story that was with the anime, but it's heavy on the story mode. And what I don't like about that is you can play it from one perspective, but then have to do the same race from a different character's perspective later on. And if you're trying to unlock certain cars, then you'll be playing them back to back, and it's just not as good as story mode was on GX. But finally, in 2004, they released F-Zero Climax, physical in Japan only. It was later released on the Wii or Wii U eShop or Virtual Console or whatever it was called, I'm not really sure. But this was the last entry, and they split the difficulties among difficulty levels. So novice and standard, you would play one set of courses, and then move on to the expert cup, or expert levels of those same cups, but they'd have more difficult tracks, moving on to master being the most difficult. And then finally Platinum Cup was just 8 courses in a row of, I believe, tracks pulled from the Super Nintendo game. So, you know, that was 2004, and we've not seen an F-Zero game since. And a lot of fans are making videos and saying that, yeah, we need a new F-Zero game. And with the Nintendo Switch and a possible Switch Pro coming out later this year, I think it's time. And they say they can't, Nintendo's gone on record as saying they can't make a new F-Zero game, or they don't want to make a new F-Zero game because they can't innovate. And F-Zero, they innovated with the Mode 7 graphics, and X innovated with the 3D courses, and then GX and AX being in the arcade, the beautiful graphics, you know, they say they cannot make a better game than this. And I say they're wrong, because looking at this graphically, especially on an HD TV, it's not that good anymore. If you play it on a CRT, yes, it still looks great, don't get me wrong. But yeah, so that's the first thing I think they could do for a new game, is HD 1080p 60 frames per second. Now, in this day and age, there's no excuse for a game not being 60 frames per second and 1080p. I mean, you could do 60 frames per second on the PS2. So, any game that's not doing that, the programmers are not doing their job. They don't know the hardware. After that, you can also innovate with online races. This is by no means an original idea, but other people have said this as well. So get up to 30 players going. If you can do Tetris 99, why can't you do F-Zero with 30 players? Then you vote on the cups and the courses, so no one can complain about, oh, I didn't want to play that. My third point was keep 40 racers and machines. You might have more as DLC, but there are more than enough characters to fill 40 roster slots, 40 machine slots. I say you could get rid of some of the fluff. One example could be Gomar and Shio, and well, you know, I don't mind using them. Their storyline in GX was this was going to be their last race as a team because they were going to get married and separate as partners. But you could also bring them back and say, oh, they're coming together for training for one final Grand Prix, so they're back in racing. But again, yeah, there are way more than 40 characters. Just cut a few of the lesser known or lesser used ones out, and there's no problem then. Or, again, bring it back in DLC, which we'll talk about in a minute. I also say we need 40 courses, 20 of which are new, and I think that's pretty standard. The original game had 15 courses, and then F-Zero X had 6 courses across 4 main cups, so 24 new courses. Maximum Velocity had 4 cups with 5 courses each, that's 20. GX had 20, plus the 6 found in AX is 26, so I think 20 as a core is pretty standard. But I'm saying 40 courses, and we'll get to that in a minute. Finally, you've got the XX Cup, similar to the X Cup, which is random courses, or courses randomly chosen, not randomly generated, because that would be probably way too difficult. But, you know, it's always random, and I always loved when all of the cars would fly off the course, because I just wait at the start, and then it's like, okay, let's cruise to victory. Do that a couple times, you win the XX Cup on Master, you're gold. But, yeah, so 40 courses. I was thinking like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. You know, you unlock some of the earlier courses and tracks and cups from previous games. But of course you start off with, and for lack of a better name, I'm just using the names from GX for now. But Ruby Cup, Sapphire Cup, Emerald Cup, you beat all of those on Standard. You unlock Diamond Cup, you beat all 4 of those on Expert. You unlock the XX Cup for your randomly generated tracks. And I'm calling this F-Zero ZX, you know, as a possible name. Then you move on, you unlock the Original Cup, which I'm choosing tracks based on an overall representation of that game, as well as trying to balance the different number of planets. So you don't have every cup having a Mute City track or a fire field. But here in the original cup, I am thinking Mute City 1, it's iconic, as is Big Blue. Deathwind 2, now that's a course we have not seen since the first game, so I'd like to bring that planet back, the Crosswinds challenging you a little bit. Red Canyon 2, and Firefield. Alternatively, you could have Silence or Whiteland 2 thrown in there. Then moving on, I was thinking the X Cup, Big Blue Cylinder as a good starting course, or the second course, Port Town 1, Sector Beta, Space Plant, or Big Hand. And Big Hand finally, with no rails, so you fall off very easily. Alternatively, you could have Devil's Forest 1, 2, or 3, or any of the X Cup or DD Cup tracks. Then we've got the GX Cup, and I'm saying Sand Ocean 1. It's a little easier for the first course, although lateral shift, the second course would be just as good. Then we've got Casino Palace 2. You've got the courses crisscrossing each other. That's one of my personal favorites, as is Cosmo Terminal Trident, and that is the only course from that planet in the entire game, so I'd like to see that back. Another one with no walls, but it's pretty straightforward. Then we move on to Aeropolis 1 or 2. Now I would prefer multiplex here, but Dragon Slope would be just as good. And finally Phantom Road and its slimline slits for the difficult course. Alternatively, you could have Lightning 3 or Green Plant 3 for some AX representation, or Firefield 1 Cylinder Knot. And finally, we have the Climax Cup, being the last game in the series. We said Mute City 2, Sand Ocean 3, Lightning 3, Silence 3, Illusion 3, and again, Illusion is the only new planet and new course for this particular game. And then alternatively, you could have Red Canyon 2 or Port Town Half Dome 1 or 2. So I think this would be a good representation in the base game. And to get the two games that we did not cover, much like Mario Kart, you could do some DLC, and that's a good way to get in those extra characters and machines if you want, or just throw in some new ones as well. But I was saying the Maximum Velocity Cup, you could have Stark Farm, 10th Zone East, Cloud Carpet, Empyrean Colony, and Cinnobaz. Alternatively, you could throw Firefield, either Landmine or Warrior in there, or Craterland, the Skid Zone Circuit. And then we'd have the GP Legend Cup, Mistflow Oval, Lightning Volute B, Silence Honeycomb Final, and I think that could be a lot better in a 3D generated track than GP Legend. But Whiteland Firefield Wreckage Circuit, I love that name. Alternatively, you could have Red Canyon, either Junction or Peak Jump, Big Blue Slip Highways, or Firefield Blast Track. And then, again, well, they've been trading for a while now. F-Zero X brought in Rainbow Road for one course. Mario Kart then brought in Mute City and Big Blue in Mario Kart 8. So, why not bring a little Mario Kart back for the Mario Kart Cup? And I was thinking you start off with Royal Raceway, Yoshi Valley, a lot of N64 representation on this list. Tick-Tock Clock from the DS, Bowser's Castle from Mario Kart 8 or N64. Rainbow Road could be any of them really, N64, 8, or the Super Nintendo, again with no walls. Or you could have Electrodome from 8, Toad's Turnpike or Kinopio Highway from the N64. Sherbetland from the GameCube, or even Hyrule Circuit. So yeah, those are my thoughts on, what could be F-Zero ZX, the next game in the series. I think it's high time you put out one. Come on, Nintendo, we love you. But yeah, 31 days of F-Zero, there's my collection, thoughts on a possible game, and I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, keep racing.